Hey guys, and as we know, Mario Kart 9 was revealed last week in the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal trailer, and it looks absolutely incredible for what we've seen so far, and it's also amazing that we're finally getting a new Mario Kart game after almost 11 years. It's been long overdue, and I'm just so happy that it's happening now. But since I did a video predicting the roster with Fawful the Great, I think it would only be fitting to do a video predicting the tracks that will be in the game. So I'm going to go through both retro courses and new tracks. The retro courses are kind of just predictions of ones that I think will be here, and with new tracks, those are more hopes and ideas that I have for it. But still, some of the ideas that I have are predictions nonetheless. But before we get into this, I just wanted to mention that I have a goal to hit 30,000 subscribers before the Switch 2 launches, and if I hit that goal, I will give away a copy of Mario Kart 9 when it releases, so if you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing. But with that being said, let's go ahead and start to predict the retro courses. And with the retro courses, I don't think there's going to be as many retro courses as the new courses, because of the Booster Course Pass and Mario Kart Tour having a very heavy emphasis on the retro courses, so I feel like they might take a bit of a back seat here and they might do fewer of them this time. I still think they're going to do them, but I think there's probably going to be about 4 cups of retro courses, while the new tracks get 6 cups. That's kind of what I'm predicting here, since I don't think there should be, like, too much of an emphasis here, just because it technically is older content, and while it is amazing to see these older courses, like, remade and kind of transformed and everything, there's already been so many tracks that have been remade. There aren't too many to choose from that weren't already in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so the ones that I have here definitely weren't in 8 Deluxe, but are ones that I think are long overdue, or ones that I think would definitely get a good visual overhaul in Mario Kart 9. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the first cup, with the Shell Cup here. And the first one I have is GameCube Luigi Circuit. This one is a fairly basic track, but it still is pretty iconic, and I think it can work pretty well. Like, I like the fact that some parts of it you kind of go, like, against, like, the opposing side for, like, part of the track, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's a pretty cool idea. I like the references to the Luigi's Mansion 1 ending in the background as well, and the whole aesthetic is pretty nice. I hope that they bring back this track, they kind of bring that Mario Kart Double Dash style aesthetic back as well, because Mario Kart 9 already seems to be kind of cartoony, and I feel like the Double Dash style would definitely be pretty fitting if they adapted a little bit. But I think this would be a great track to see. And the next one I have is DS Delfino Square, and this is definitely another one that I think is a little overdue, since the last time we've seen it was in Mario Kart Wii. And I definitely think this one could get an overhaul as well. I definitely think this is a very iconic track, I would say. Maybe not as iconic as other ones from DS, like Waluigi Pinball and different things like that, but Delfino Square is still very nice. I like the autumn vibe that it has. It kind of seems like a part of Isle Delfino that takes place during the fall, and I just really like that vibe to it. And it's just very nostalgic as well. I really like the music. I really want to hear the music remade. So that's partially one of the reasons why I want to see it, but I love kind of weaving through the streets here. It's just really fun, and I really like it. So I definitely think this could get an overhaul in Mario Kart 9. I think that would be very nice. And the next one is actually an arcade track, and that is Arcade Peach's Castle from Mario Kart Arcade GPDX. And this one would be pretty nice because there actually haven't been any arcade tracks that have been remade in any of the console Mario Kart games. I think all of them are long overdue, and I really hope we'll get some of them in Mario Kart 9. I know it seems unlikely, but Mario Kart games nowadays tend to be co-developed by Bandai Namco, or at least a team within Bandai Namco, so I think it would definitely be really fitting to see some of these arcade tracks brought over at some point, because there isn't really any way officially to play them at home, so I think it would be great if they brought this back. Like, if not in Mario Kart 9, then at least porting the games to the Switch 2. But I'm just predicting that, like, we'll maybe see a couple here, even though it does seem pretty unlikely. And my first choice is Arcade Peach's Castle, like I said, and this one is pretty interesting because it kind of has a Super Mario Bros. 1 style theme to it. And I know, like, that seems like a sort of generic thing to reference, but the way they do it is very nice, and aesthetically, it looks really good. So, I definitely think they could bring this back and kind of, like, visually overhaul it even more. I think that would look really nice, and yeah, compared to other Peach's Castle style tracks in Mario Kart, this one definitely looks a little more distinct than the others, which is partially why I'd want to see it. And the final track for the first cup here is Wii Toad's Factory, and this is another track that is long overdue, and I really want to see this one come back. I think they could definitely, like, overhaul it in quite a lot of ways. I really like the factory aesthetic here, as well as the music, of course. So, this is definitely one of the fan favorites for Mario Kart Wii, and it was kind of baffling to not see it return in the Booster Course Pass or even Mario Kart Tour. So I really want to see this one return, and with the scale and scope of Mario Kart 9, they could definitely do quite a lot with Toad's Factory. And moving on to the Banana Cup, the first one we have here is a fairly basic pick. I know I kind of had to include a couple basic picks here to just kind of balance out the crazy picks, and this is Wii Mario Circuit. And I think this is a much better choice for a circuit track from Wii than Luigi's Circuit Wii, because Luigi's Circuit Wii is pretty boring. At least Wii Mario Circuit is a little better, and does have some interesting elements to it, like the town, and the chain chomp, and different things like that. So, it is definitely a lot better than Luigi Circuit Wii, and I think it's also better than Luigi Circuit, or Mario Circuit GameCube as well, since Mario Circuit GameCube is kind of basic as well, but this one at least has like a few interesting, like, things in its locale to kind of mix it up a little bit, so, and with the overhaul, I think it could also look nice as well. And moving on, we have another arcade track. I'm actually going to include an arcade track in each cup here, just because the arcade tracks are just that long overdue, I would say. And that is Splash Circuit from Arcade GPDX. And I think this would also be a great one to see. It is a very unique looking beach-themed track, and I really like the aesthetic here as well. It's kind of like an evolved version of, like, the Mario Highway track from Arcade GP and GP2. So I just really like it here. I think the aesthetic looks really nice and just very unique compared to, like, a lot of, like, tropical beach-themed Mario Kart tracks. It kind of gives off the theme that it's more of, like, a tropical resort, which I really like. So I think this would be really nice to see. And then next up, another one that is long overdue. You could probably see a theme here. And that is Mushroom City from Mario Kart Double Dash. I have been wanting this one to return for so long, even though I slightly prefer Moonview Highway, and I'm kind of glad that that got in with Mario Kart Tour and the Booster Course Pass. I still really want to see Mushroom City, and I think they could definitely do a lot with this one. I know they did a lot of city tracks between Tour and the Booster Course Pass, but I think Mushroom City kind of has a unique feel to it. It's not really exactly like the city tracks in Tour. It kind of has its own unique theme to it. So I like to see this one return. And they could definitely do a lot. Maybe they could even use what they learned in the city tracks to kind of even overhaul this one a little more. So yeah, I definitely think this one would be great to see. And moving on, we have the final one of this cup, and that is N64 Wario Stadium. This is one that hasn't returned since Mario Kart 64. And even though this track is kinda, let's be honest, it's kinda bad. It's kinda lackluster and just boring and not very good. But, hear me out. I think they could do a lot to overhaul this track. like keep the general aesthetic of like kind of like this dirt kind of thing, but they could overhaul it quite a lot to have like these crazy tricks and crazy little things built off of it, kind of like how Mario Kart Tour had. And they can even make it like a little more aesthetically interesting as well, rather than just have Wario's face plastered alongside the side of the track. Maybe they could even have like little screens that show like different pictures of Wario doing different things. I think that would be pretty funny. And then they could also decrease the amount of laps. Like, I think probably 2 laps would be better for this one. But yeah, I think they could definitely do a lot to overhaul this one. Like, since Mario Kart 9 does seem to be doing quite a lot from what we've seen so far, I think Wario Stadium could definitely get a huge upgrade if they were to bring it back. And next up we have the Leaf Cup, and the first one we have here is Piranha Plant Pipeline from Mario Kart Tour. That was honestly one of the most disappointing things that was kind of omitted from the Booster Course Pass, because I think that track is pretty interesting. Like, it's kind of based on the scrap track from Mario Kart DS, which had a similar idea of incorporating pipes and things. And I think it looks pretty cool as well, even though the exterior of the track, like, it's plastered all over, like the thumbnails and things for the track looks very boring and basic. The actual pipe portion of it is pretty interesting, and I think would definitely make for a great track to be, like, overhauled and everything. So yeah, I think this would definitely be a great one to see, and it would also be great to see, like, a tour track, like, overhauled. But I think the reason why they left it out of the Booster Course Pass is because it could easily get confused with something like Piranha Plant Slide or Piranha Plant Cove, with Piranha Plant Slide specifically being very similar to Piranha Plant Pipeline in a lot of ways. I mean, the layouts are very different, but the ideas are kind of similar, so I think that's probably why they didn't include it. But the next one we have here is Arcade Diamond City from Arcade GP, and this one would be incredible. This is the only track in the Mario Kart series referencing WarioWare, and really the only thing in the Mario Kart series referencing WarioWare. And I think it would be absolutely amazing if they brought this track back, and even added some more WarioWare references on top of what's already there. Like, it is really cool how they reference things such as Club Sugar, the Castle, and Diamond Taxi, but I think they could do even more to kind of incorporate this within, like, WarioWare and everything, like, add even more locations and things. I think that would be amazing, and I think it would work really well alongside some potential WarioWare characters. I'm not sure how likely the WarioWare characters would be, but if they were to add characters like Mona, Jimmy T, Ashley, and Dribble and Spitz, I think adding Diamond City would be the perfect track to accompany them, and I think would be absolutely amazing. I feel like this is definitely my most wanted arcade track. And moving on, we have Maka Woohoo from Mario Kart 7, and this is another track that a lot of people have been wanting to return. I really like Woohoo Island in general from Wii Sports Resort, and I thought it was really cool how they referenced it in Mario Kart 7. So I think it would be amazing if they brought this track back, and since it is, like, a pretty large-scale track, it would work really well in Mario Kart 9. And I just think this would be great. So I really hope they bring back Maka Woohoo here. I just think that would be really cool. Imagine if they, like, combined the two ideas of, like, Woohoo Island Loop, or Woohoo Loop, and Maka Woohoo together to create one, like, massive track. I could see Mario Kart 9 doing something like that, honestly. And I think that would be really cool. Like, just a fully fleshed out Woohoo Island in Mario Kart 9. Like, that would be incredible. But if they were to go with just one version, they would probably go with Maka Woohoo. And finally, another one that I really want is Wario Coliseum. I know we also have Wario Stadium, but Wario Coliseum is a lot different, because it's kind of like a like a metal track in kind of like a different type of, like, stadium here. It's kind of like a little larger scope than Wario Stadium, but I would love to see this one return. This one is so crazy and chaotic that it's just been so disappointing that this one hasn't come back. And it is also pretty big as well, which would definitely be fitting, like I said, in Mario Kart 9, but I really want to see this one return at some point. It's been disappointing that it hasn't come back, because this is one of my favorite Double Dash tracks, but I think this would be really cool. So, moving on to the final cup of retro courses, we have Arcade Pack Labyrinth. And Pack Labyrinth would be really cool. It could actually be either this or Namco Circuit, but if they were to choose one, I could see Nintendo probably going with like Pack Labyrinth, because it's kind of more Pac-Man focused, and if Bandai Namco wants to like have some kind of focus, it would probably be like mainly on Pac-Man. But this is really cool, and I really like the idea behind this track and everything. It just looks really cool overall, and I just love to see it. Like, I'd even like to see Pac-Man return as a playable character. That is one of the few, like, crossover characters that I'd actually like to see. I think that would be pretty cool. I'd prefer, of course, the RPG characters that have priority over someone like Pac-Man, but Pac-Man would still be a really cool character to see if they were going to do any more crossover characters. I feel like Pac-Man's kind of in a similar boat to Rob in that aspect, since Pac-Man has been in Mario Kart for like almost 20 years now. Like, it's really hard to believe that Arcade GP is like almost 20 years old now, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy. But Pack Labyrinth would be really cool to see. And next up is Airship Fortress, and this is one that was brought back in Tour that was kind of disappointing to not see in the Booster Course Pass, because I quite like Airship Fortress. I love the more Super Mario Bros. 3 focused airship theme rather than the new Super Mario Bros. One that they always go with whenever they represent the airship and everything, like in anything. But I just think like the theming is definitely pretty distinct, and it looks really cool overall, so I just love to see this with Mario Kart 9's visuals and everything. And like even things like the new Rocky Wrench design would be very fitting in Airship Fortress, especially since that design is kind of based on the design from Super Mario Bros. 3, and it's even like a little closer to like the DS design as well, which was kind of like an interesting, weird design for the Rocky Wrench. But yeah, Airship Fortress would be incredible. And then next up we have DS Bowser's Castle. I was actually originally thinking of having GameCube Bowser's Castle, but I think DS Bowser's Castle is also long overdue, I would say, since it's one of the tracks from like Mario Kart DS that hasn't returned in quite a while. And I think it's just a pretty cool rendition of like Bowser's Castle overall. Like, I like that one section when you're on like the rotating bridge. I think that's pretty cool. And then also like the outdoor section is pretty cool as well when you're kind of going like around the lava. It's just a really fun track overall, and it's just been kind of disappointing that it hasn't returned. And then finally, we have GBA Rainbow Road. And I want this specific rendition of Rainbow Road to return for one reason, and that is Paper Mario. Because this is one of the few times, aside from Goomboss in Mario Kart DS's mission mode, that Mario Kart references Paper Mario, since Bowser's Castle from Paper Mario 64 appears in the background of this track. And I honestly think they could go all out with this Paper Mario reference. I know it kind of seems unlikely that they do anything with Paper Mario, but keep in mind, they have done some pretty big overhauls with GBA tracks in the past, like with Ribbon Road being like kind of going all out with the toy theming, and even including references to the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, which isn't even developed by EPD. So I think they could do something with like GBA Rainbow Road that actually doubles down on the Paper Mario references. So I think that would be amazing. Like, actually have a section where you go through like Paper Mario 64 Bowser's Castle. I think that would be incredible. Like, have some Koopa Trolls in the background, as well as some other Paper Mario 64 enemies. Have Kammy Koopa flying around in the background. That would be really cool. And even the Star Spirits kind of flying around the track as well. Or, like, Embers showing up on the track, kind of similar how the pathway up to Starhaven had them. That would just be incredible. And they can even go a step farther and actually make it look like paper. I know I'm not too crazy about, like, Paper Mario being literal paper, but just from, like, something in a vacuum, kind of being a Mario Kart track, I think that would still look pretty cool. Especially if they went with the Thousand Year Door remake theming, where they could have that kind of style, which I think looks pretty good. Like that pop-up book style. I think that would actually look pretty nice. I would prefer if they translated everything into, like, 3D, but I wouldn't mind if they went all out with the papery stuff, if it looked like the Thousand Year Door remake. But those are my ideas for retro courses, and I know the arcade tracks are kind of unlikely, but honestly, I'm still gonna hold out some hope for it, because I really hope that they'll add them. But next, let's move on to the new tracks. And for these, I kind of have some interesting and creative ideas for a lot of them. So of course, we already know that Mario Bros. Circuit is going to be a thing here, but I think it would be cool if there were also some ideas for some other character-themed tracks, and one of them is DK's Amazing Arcade. Basically, my idea for this is a giant arcade, kind of similar to Disney Quest, if anyone remembers that, as well as, like, the arcades that Sega kind of used to do that were kind of giant, and it would be like a huge arcade filled with references to classic Nintendo arcade games, like Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Bros., Donkey Kong 3, Wrecking Crew, different things like that. I think it would be really cool, since, like, it is always nice when Nintendo references their, like, arcade games rather than the NES games, because the NES games, yeah, it's inevitable that Nintendo will reference them, but with their arcade games, I think that makes it a little more interesting, I would say. But moving on, we have Princess Circuit, which would be focused on Peach and Daisy, and my idea for it is kind of like a tropical resort. I know that kind of sounds similar to something like Peach Beach, but I think they could go even more in depth with it. Like, you actually go through the hotel, you go through, like, a little portion where you're going through the jungle, like on the treetops, and even go underwater for one of the sections, and then go around on the beach. I think they could do something really nice with this, and I think it would be really cool to see. Maybe even have Daisy Cruiser in the background as a reference, kind of like how they had it, like, in Double Dash on Peach Beach as a reference. But I think that would be pretty cool. And next up is Moo Moo Mountains, which would be a sequel to Moo Moo Farms and Moo Moo Meadows. And basically, this would kind of be inspired by, like, the Appalachian Mountains of the US, kind of similar to how Mario Bros. Circuit is kind of based on the US Southwest. And I think it would be pretty cool to go around on the mountains. Like, you're kind of at the foot of the mountains when you're in the farms. You're kind of like in the rolling hills, but you see the mountains looming in the background. And then you actually ascend into the mountains and go around and see the farmland in, like, kind of down below. And then you kind of go around and then go back into the farms. I think that would be really cool. And that would definitely be cool to see the Moo Moos return, since they've kind of been a meme recently. So yeah, I would love to see a sequel track to Moo Moo Farms and Moo Moo Meadows, but we do know already that Mario Bros. Circuit is the true sequel to Moo Moo Meadows, since Yoshi does have a cafe there, or a diner there, that has some burgers and things. But moving on, we have Home Circuit. And basically, this would be a reference to Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, where it's in a giant house. And I think it would be pretty cool. I know that's kind of similar to Squeaky Clean I think Squeaky Clean Circuit, or whatever it was called in the Booster Course Pass, or Squeaky Clean Sprint, that's what it's called, in the Booster Course Pass. But it would actually be more, like, around, like, the living room and the kitchen, kind of like the one level in Pikmin 4. But it would also have, like, the cardboard stands and things from Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. I just think that would be pretty cool. I know a certain Lord Crumple, maybe, thanks, would be very happy with this one. So I think it would be pretty cool to see it. And next up, we have Subterranean Suburbia, and basically this would be a civilization of Monty moles that takes place underground. Like, this wouldn't just be just the Monty moles mining, like, kind of how they were in, like, Paper Mario the Origami King, but, like, actually where they live and kind of roam around. You could see them, like, going to work, like, you could see them in, like, little outfits. Maybe they're riding around on little minecarts or digging around. I think that would be really cool, and I think they could definitely go all out with it, because I think there's a lot that they could do with the Monty moles. Even throw in some, like, other Monty moles as well, like the Morty moles, or some Rocky Wrenches, now that they have a new distinct design. I think that would just be really cool. I know Rocky Wrenches technically aren't Monty moles, I just think they're still kind of a related species. But yeah, next up we have Time Twisted Turnpike. And basically, this would be a highway in the Mushroom Kingdom that switches between the past, present, and future between each lap, kind of similar to Sonic CD. And actually, speaking of Sonic CD, I had an even crazier idea that depending on what happens during the race, you can either get a good future or a bad future, which kind of changes both like the music, the setting, as well as obstacles on the track. So I think that would be really cool to see. They could really set it in any location, but probably like a basic Mushroom Kingdom location, the kind of change into like a past looking Mushroom Kingdom, maybe even like looking kind of like the one in Super Mario RPG. That would be pretty cool, because that kind of has like a, like almost like a medieval kind of style vibe to it. And then like the future one, they could kind of do like some kind of futuristic Mushroom Kingdom as well. I just think that would be really cool. And next up, we have Crazy Card Castle. And this is kind of my Paper Mario influence kind of sneaking in again, because this is kind of based on the idea from Paper Mario Sticker Star that was actually scrapped. That was in the trailer that we recently found from E3 2010, where Mario is kind of walking around a castle with playing cards and things. I think it would be really cool if they brought this idea back and fully realized it into a Mario Kart track. Of course, I'd like to see the idea return in Paper Mario, but it would also be really cool to see it in Mario Kart as well. But next up, we have Haunted Galleria. And basically, this would kind of be like Coconut Mall, but haunted. And also like a larger scale from Coconut Mall as well. But it would be giant and abandoned, and also like filled with like booze and other ghosts that are roaming around, doing different things, maybe jump scaring you while you're driving. But this would be pretty cool. I really want to see an abandoned mall aesthetic, especially since abandoned malls are becoming more and more common in certain places like the US. So I think it would be really interesting to see. And the backrooms slash liminal space aesthetic has been kind of getting popular over the past few years. So I think it would be cool to see some like Nintendo take on that. Because that has been like a fairly popular thing. It has been like kind of adapted in certain games, like Anton Blast with the big bath, kind of like doing like a take on the pool rooms. But I think like the abandoned mall thing would be really cool. I've just like over the past few years, I've just like really have been interested in this horror slash aesthetic. And one YouTube channel, Kane Pixels, has been making some amazing videos in animations based on this concept. Like the Oldest Views series is just absolutely incredible and definitely encapsulates that abandoned mall slash liminal space kind of feeling. So I'd like to see like more takes on that style. And next up, we have a reference. Actually, the next few tracks are kind of references to various games. And we have the Sparkle Theater from Princess Peach Showtime. And I think Peach Showtime should definitely get some representation here, since it definitely introduced a lot of interesting things into the franchise in terms of characters in the Sparkle Theater location. And I think they could go through like different like sets that they have going on in the theater, kind of like how Peach Showtime had. And it would definitely be a good track to kind of accompany a character like Madame Grape, Stella, or the feats as well, if any of them were going to be added, or even if Peach has some like alt costumes based on Peach Showtime. I think that would be just really cool. It would be really nice to see. And next up, we have the 1,000-Year Door. You probably saw this one coming from 1,000 miles away, but I would love to see my favorite game of all time get some representation in Mario Kart 9. I could just imagine a Yoshi's Island style track based on 1,000-Year Door that goes through different locations like Roadport, Bogley Woods, Petal Meadows, Twilight Town, as well as Poshley Heights and Riverside Station. That would just be incredible. That would be absolutely amazing. They could even, like, take advantage of some of the power of the Switch too, and even do something, like, really impressive. Like, have each location pop up, like it's in a pop-up book or on the magical map, like when you get close to it. That would just be absolutely incredible, and would love to see it. They could even incorporate some things like the paper coins, or like some of the sound effects from 1,000-Year Door, like the stylish moves, or when you finish a race, it kind of does the victory theme. That would just be amazing. I just really want to see that happen. Like, please, please Nintendo, make it happen. And Vivian as a playable character to go along with this too, and Goombella possibly. That would just be amazing. And moving on, we have Game & Watch Garage. So I think it would be cool to see a Game & Watch style track as well, since Nintendo does like to reference Game & Watch from time to time, like of course with Smash, and then with some other things as well, like Super Paper Mario's Pit of 100 Trials, as well as like WarioWare. So I think it would be really cool to see like a Game & Watch themed track, like have like the flat characters kind of pop up with their like frame, like the choppy frames that they have like on the Game & Watch, have everything like kind of be like partially monochrome with like some colorful like background things in the background. That would just be really cool, and I really want to see that made into a track. So yeah, and the next idea that I have is the Flower Kingdom from Super Mario Bros. Wonder, or they could even do the Petal Isles from Super Mario Bros. Wonder as well. I need Wonder to get some representation in Mario Kart 9. I know I always go on about the Mario RPGs, but Wonder needs it too. Wonder also needs some representation. It was disappointing that there wasn't any representation of Wonder in Super Mario Party Jamboree, so they could make it up to us in Mario Kart 9 by giving us both, like, the Poplins, Prince Florian, Talking Flower especially, as playable characters, and then some kind of Wonder-themed track in Mario Kart 9. I really want to see this happen. Please, Nintendo, make this happen. I would just love to see it. Wonder would just work so well as a track. They could, like, incorporate the Wonder Flower during, like, certain laps, and it would just, like, look... They could just keep the visuals intact from Wonder as well, and it would still work just really well as a track. It would just look amazing, and I really hope it happens. And the next one we have is Frantic Forest Maze, and of course this is based on Super Mario RPG with the Forest Maze, and this would definitely accompany a character like Geno. And the Forest Maze is one of the most popular areas from Super Mario RPG, so I'd love to see this get a track. I think, like, other locations from the game, like things like Weapon World or Star Hill, would also be incredible tracks to see in Mario Kart 9, but I think Forest Maze is probably the most likely, and if they were to kind of, like, accompany it with Geno, it would make a lot of sense. And even though Super Mario RPG is, like, a lot of the things from the game are owned by Square Enix, I don't think Nintendo would have that much of an issue getting the license and permission to use it. Like, especially since they just did the remake recently. So, I think it would be a good way to promote the remake as well. So, I doubt Square Enix would have any issue with Nintendo using it, or would really have, like, that much involved with it. But yeah, the Forest Maze would be very nice to see. And next up is Heat Freeze Island from Mario & Luigi Brothership. I know I keep going on about the Mario RPGs, But Brothership would also work incredibly well in Mario Kart 9, especially since everything is already in 3D, so it wouldn't be too hard to adapt. And Heat Freeze Island, if they were to bring over any locations from Brothership, I think this one makes the most sense, as it has a really cool theme with, like, fire and ice on the island, kind of similar to Freeze Flame Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy, and it would just work really well. You could have, like, the fire and ice Concordians in the background, even those statues where Mario and Luigi get the fire flower and ice flower powers in the game, and even the Magmads and Ice Sads, which originally appeared in Dream Team, that kind of appear on the track and kind of do different things. I think that would be really cool, and would definitely make this a pretty good track, I would say. Just the whole idea from it, like, even from a casual standpoint, like, fire and ice makes a pretty good, like, kind of foundation for a track idea. So I think it would be nice to see Heat Freeze Island. The next one I have is New Donk Drive. And yes, I know this is technically another city-themed track, but I think if they were to bring any location from Odyssey into Mario Kart, it would probably be New Donk City, and since Pauline is a mainstay now, I think it would kind of make sense to have New Donk City. I mean, yeah, I would kind of like to see locations like Bonneton or Tostarena be adapted into Mario Kart, but I wouldn't mind New Donk City as well, especially if they kind of utilize, like, the underground portion of it, or actually have you go through the, like, the main building, like the City Hall. But yeah, I think if they were to have any Odyssey-themed track, it would probably be themed around New Donk City. So yeah, I would still be happy with this one though. And next up we have Crocodile Island, or Crocodile Isle from Donkey Kong Country 2. And I know, realistically, Nintendo would probably add, like, a Tiki Tong theme track, because they think Tiki Tong is Donkey Kong's main villain now rather than K. Rool. But in the hypothetical that they actually add K. Rool as a playable character in Mario Kart 9, which I hope they do, I think Crocodile Isle would be a great track to represent K. Rool. There's, like, a lot of really cool locations they could, like, reference here. And I think that would just be really nice overall. But yeah, I think this would be really nice to see, especially since Donkey Kong, like, nowadays, they generally only represent returns, not even Tropical Freeze, which is kind of disappointing. So if they were to have more representation for, like, other Donkey Kong games, they should reference the rare games, and even, like, somewhat Tropical Freeze more. So I think they should hopefully do that. And then next up, we have, rather than Bowser's Castle, Castle Bowser. I think this would be a really cool track idea to see. And yes, I know Castle Bowser is technically Bowser, and I know it kind of sounds weird that you would be racing on Bowser as Bowser, but you could also race as Dry Bowser or the baby characters alongside their adult counterparts, so I don't think Castle Bowser is that big of an idea. But they could even justify, if they were to have any sort of justification of it, they could probably say, like, oh, this is a recreation of Castle Bowser made into a racetrack. There, that's your explanation there. But Castle Bowser would just be really cool to see, because it has a really cool kind of factory/industrial style theming to it, which you don't really see too often for, like, Bowser and everything. Like, you've seen it before in, like, the arcade GP games, which would also be nice to see, like, if we got the Bowser's Factory returning, but Castle Bowser is such a really cool aesthetic, and I really want to see that made into a track. And then finally, of course, we have a rendition of Rainbow Road. And there are quite a lot of ideas that they could do with this. It's kind of hard to predict what they could do with Rainbow Road, because they can do literally anything with it. I'm just hoping that it is more of a natural-looking Rainbow Road rather than the artificial Space Station-style Rainbow Road of Mario Kart 8. Don't get me wrong, I like the Space Station-style aesthetic, but I kind of wish they did that for another type of track rather than the main Rainbow Road, because I think the appeal of Rainbow Road is kind of like a magical style thing. I think that would work much better, like, if they do a kind of like a magical, kind of natural looking Rainbow Road rather than like one that's kind of like a space station or something like that. So I hope they don't go down that road again, that Rainbow Road, I'd say. But yeah, I hope they have like a really interesting Rainbow Road. Meech brought this up to me recently, but he brought up that the Rainbow Road in one of the arcade GP games, or a couple of them at least, had an underwater section, which I think would also be really cool if they were to do that. Maybe they could like go all out, like go even beyond space for Rainbow Road. Maybe you could go through different dimensions on Rainbow Road. That would be really cool. But yeah, those are my track ideas for Mario Kart 9. The new tracks are kind of mostly like my hopes rather than my predictions, though I could see a few of these ideas, especially like a Mario Wonder themed track happening. Even Home Circuit, I think that's a pretty good idea as well. I could see ones like that happening, but with my retro courses, those are more of my predictions than anything. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!